Imagine for a second that you live in this magnificent, towering skyscraper.
Mm.
I mean, it has absolutely everything you could ever want.
Right, like glass elevators, high-speed Wi-Fi, perfectly calibrated air conditioning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Incredible panoramic views. But there's a major catch. The foundation of this skyscraper was actually poured 400 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And while you are up on the 100th floor, just enjoying all the conveniences of the modern world,
Mm.
down in the basement, those 400-year-old bricks are starting to crack.
Because they are cracking under the immense compounding weight of literally everything we've built on top of them.
Right.
And the thing is, we rarely look down at that basement. We just keep building upward, adding new floors, new technologies, and entirely new economic systems.
Dooming the foundation will hold.
Exactly, assuming that the philosophical masonry poured centuries ago will somehow hold our weight indefinitely.
Well, today we're heading down into that basement, so welcome to this deep dive.
It's going to be a fascinating one.
It really is. Our mission today is to unpack a highly provocative 2023 essay by an author named Xu Feng. It's titled, "Private Ownership is an Obstacle to the Ascension of Human Civilization."
Which is a heavy title.
It is. I mean, this essay basically takes a sledgehammer to a core pillar of Western thought and offers a radically different blueprint for how human beings could organize themselves.
Yeah, and we are going to explore everything from the foundational architecture of modern economic might all the way to the theoretical structures of alien civilizations.
Which is wild. And then all the way down to the mechanics of an actual 14-year real-world experiment right here on Earth in a non-ownership society.
But before we get into all of that, we really have to put our cards on the table.
Yes, absolutely. Look, private property is the absolute bedrock of how we live, work, and survive. So questioning it is naturally going to touch a nerve.
Right.
We want to be super clear with you listening. We aren't here to champion this essay or to defend the status quo. Our only job today is to act as impartial guides.
Just to pull apart the mechanics of this incredibly radical argument and see what makes it tick. Because regardless of where you fall on the political or economic spectrum, understanding an opposing viewpoint forces you to stress test your own beliefs.
Total.
And the author isn't merely suggesting, a tax reform or a slight policy shift. The argument is that the very concept of possessing something individually is the core bug in our societal operating system.
Okay, let's unpack this. The essay zeroes in on the very basement of Western property rights, which is John Locke's The Second Treatise of Civil Government.
Right, the classic.
The classic. We all know Locke's premise.
Yeah.
It is the text that essentially laid the philosophical and legal groundwork for modern Western civilization.
Yeah, I mean, the sheer structural might of present-day America, the concept of a free market, the legal right to the fruits of your own labor, it is all tethered directly to the philosophies Locke outlined 4 centuries ago.
Right. And Locke's worldview was anchored by a deeply pragmatic understanding of human motivation. He looked at how society works and essentially codified private ownership as the engine of all human effort.
He did. He posed these 3 critical questions that honestly still dictate our economic reality today. He asked, if wealth isn't yours to keep, would you actually strive to earn it?
Right.
Then he asked, if a son isn't yours, would you put in the immense effort and resources to raise him? And finally, if a wife is considered public, would you truly cherish her?
And it's a view that concludes private ownership isn't just an economic tool. Locke is saying it's the basis of human morality and a fundamental law of nature.
Exactly. We care for things and people because we have a proprietary stake in them.
Take away the individual stake and you basically remove the incentive to care. But Xu Feng doesn't deny Locke's historical impact. Instead, the essay makes this really fascinating counter-argument that even the most brilliant thinkers are ultimately constrained by the era they live in.
Yeah, a brilliant thought from 400 years ago doesn't possess eternal immunity to obsolescence. Xu Feng actually compares Locke to a master carriage driver in the era of automobiles.
I love that analogy.
It's great, right? You could possess the greatest skill set in the world with horses and reins, but that expertise just doesn't translate to navigating a modern high-speed highway system.
The context is fundamentally shifted. To put that in today's terms, it's like trying to run an advanced global artificial intelligence on a 400-year-old abacus.
Oh, that's a perfect way to look at it.
Right. I mean, the abacus was a mathematical triumph in its day. But mechanically, it fundamentally requires individual beads being physically moved one by one.
Which is exactly how Locke viewed private property and individual effort.
Yes. An abacus literally does not have the architecture to process collective, cloud-based, interconnected problems. The rules of the old hardware just do not fit the reality of the new software.
And if we are running a highly interconnected 21st century global civilization on the philosophical equivalent of an abacus, well, we should be seeing massive system errors.
And we are.
Right. According to Shufeng, those crashes aren't just theoretical debates happening in university philosophy departments. They are manifesting physically.
Yeah, the essay transitions from Locke to a stark audit of our planet, basically labeling private ownership as the chief culprit behind our macro-level crises.
The text really does not hold back. It argues that the underlying desire to own, protect, and expand private property isn't just a byproduct of conflict. It is the core generating mechanism.
The need to individually secure finite resources drives global turmoil and wars.
Exactly. But the indictment goes even further into the ecological realm. Things like deforestation, land desertification, atmospheric pollution. The essay draws a direct causal line from the concept of private ownership to the broader ecological trend toward total planetary collapse.
Because the mechanism of private ownership requires constant localized extraction for individual gain, and that is often at the expense of the systemic whole.
Yeah, the essay suggests that under this framework, the very idea of sustainable development is just a mathematical impossibility.
Wow.
You cannot sustainably manage a holistic, finite system if every actor within it is incentivized by the rules of the game to hoard pieces of it for themselves.
Which means we are totally trapped in a paradigm.
Yeah.
And to break out of it, the essay zooms way, way out past human history into this higher dimension perspective involving cosmic civilizations.
It's a huge shift in the text. It attempts to reframe our earthly struggles by placing us in a universal context.
What's fascinating here is how Chopin categorizes these theoretical civilizations.
Yes.
The author claims there are 20 different types of civilizations in the universe and uses a really specific mathematical notation to illustrate the vast gulf between our current state and more advanced societies.
The text contrasts a civilization represented by the letters X, Y, Z with one represented by -X, -Y, -Z.
Okay, that notation is wild. What does it actually mean in the context of the essay's argument against property?
So think of X, Y, and Z as our current dimensions of existence, perhaps representing material accumulation, territorial expansion, and individual ego.
Okay, I follow.
A slight variation, like changing one variable, might represent a civilization that has solved energy scarcity but still fights over territory. But the most advanced civilizations, the -X, -Y, -Z models, represent a complete inversion of our current metrics.
So they flip the board entirely.
Yes. It suggests that highly advanced societies don't just have better technology to acquire more things. Their advancement is inherently tied to the negation of those primitive dimensions.
And the core claim is this inverse relationship. The more technologically and spiritually advanced a cosmic civilization becomes, the further removed it is from the concept of private ownership and human selfishness. The variables themselves literally flip.
And the essay argues that we are trapping our own imagination by only looking at human history. We can't fathom the organizational patterns of these advanced cosmic societies because our brains are entirely wired within the XYZ paradigm of accumulation.
We just assume that alien civilizations would be hyper-capitalist versions of ourselves.
Exactly.
I have to push back here on behalf of anyone listening, though. We are talking about cosmic civilizations evolving past selfishness, but isn't selfishness hardwired into our biology?
But that is the big question.
Right. It's survival of the fittest. You don't just legislate or philosophize the ego out of existence. If I am hungry and you have food, my biological imperative is to secure that food for myself. How can any society just evolve past basic human nature?
That is the most profound friction point in the entire essay, and Xuefeng anticipates it. The author argues that our current definition of human nature is deeply flawed because it relies on a very narrow data set.
Okay.
The text introduces what it calls the cosmic holographic theory to explain how human nature actually functions.
The holographic human. Break down the mechanics of this theory for us, because it really flips the biological argument on its head.
Yeah, according to this holographic theory, a human being does not possess a single fixed biological nature. Instead, we are complex repositories of multiple dormant tendencies.
Like a spectrum?
Exactly. The essay categorizes these into humane, animalistic, and divine traits. Yes, we absolutely have a deep capacity for aggressive selfishness that is our animalistic trait, but we carry an equal latent capacity for profound selflessness and communal empathy.
So we aren't naturally selfish, and we are naturally selfless.
Yeah.
We are literally all of the above, just sitting in a state of potential.
And which trait actually boots up and runs the system depends entirely on the external environment.
Hmm.
The diverse soil, the economic structures, the daily circumstances in which we are forced to survive these external factors dictate which aspects of our holographic nature take root and grow.
So Locke's foundational mistake wasn't necessarily his observation, it was his sample size.
Yes.
He looked at people operating within a society built on the mechanics of private ownership, observed that they acted selfishly to survive in that specific system, and concluded that humans are inherently universally selfish.
Right. It's like studying a group of people shivering in a blizzard and concluding that human beings naturally generate ice.
That is exactly it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the essay uses a classic agricultural observation in China to drive this point home. The Huai River oranges.
Oh, right, the oranges.
Yeah, if you plant orange seeds in the southern region of the Huai River, the specific soil composition and climate naturally yield beautiful, sweet oranges. But if you take those exact same seeds, the identical genetic code, and plant them in the northern region, the different environment produces sour trifoliate oranges.
The genetic material doesn't change at all, but the soil forces a completely different expression of the fruit. So the essay is arguing that a society architected around private ownership is the northern sour soil. It is a highly competitive, artificially scarce environment that forcibly cultivates our most animalistic selfish traits, simply because we have to compete to pay rent, secure healthcare, and survive.
Right.
Like if you are listening to this right now on your commute and you feel a constant low-level anxiety about your financial security, Shefeng would argue you are naturally an anxious, competitive person. You've just been planted in northern soil.
We are just adapting our behavior to survive the system we built. And this fundamentally invalidates Locke's 3 questions from earlier.
Right, about the wealth, the son, and the wife.
Yeah. Schreffing argues that asking why someone would strive if they couldn't hoard wealth or why they would care for a child they didn't personally own stems directly from that primitive animalistic mindset cultivated by the sour soil.
That is a massive philosophical leap.
Yep.
But I feel like it demands some real-world friction.
Yeah.
I mean, it is very easy to write an essay about sweet oranges and advanced alien civilizations with negative variables. But has anyone actually tried planting this new soil? What are the actual daily mechanics of a society where no one owns anything? Does it immediately devolve into a tragedy of the commons, where everyone just waits for someone else to take out the trash?
That is exactly where Shofang's essay transitions from abstract philosophy to applied science. The author isn't just speaking hypothetically here.
Okay.
The text relies on the data from a specific real-world experiment designed to test this exact non-ownership premise.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the essay details a 14-year experiment conducted right here on Earth by a group called Lifechanyuan.
Yes.
For over a decade, they engineered and tested what the author explicitly calls a non-ownership model.
And we really must dissect that term carefully. The essay clarifies that non-ownership is not a synonym for public ownership.
That's a crucial distinction.
It is. In a public ownership model, the state, or the collective, still holds title to the land and the resources. It's just a consolidation of the XYZ paradigm.
The government is just hoarding it instead of the individual.
Exactly. Non-ownership, as tested in this experiment, implies the total mechanical elimination of the concept of property. It attempts to replicate those negative X, negative Y, negative Z patterns of cosmic civilizations.
And the text highlights 2 specific societal models they engineered during this experiment: the second home model and the 1,000-year world model. The latter is noted as being the most applicable to our current human society. But how do the logistics actually work? Like, if you don't get a paycheck, how do you eat?
So the models operated on collective logistics and direct provisioning. Instead of a transactional economy where you trade your specialized labor for currency to then buy your own food and shelter, labor was contributed to a central communal pool. And in return, the daily needs of every individual, housing, high-quality food, healthcare, education, were provisioned directly based on need, completely decoupled from individual output.
And the essay presents the results of these communities as a literal empirical rebuttal to Locke. Because remember, Locke's first question, if wealth isn't yours, would you strive?
Right.
The text reports that in these Lifechanyuan communities, private wealth was entirely non-existent. Yet the mechanical reality was that everyone worked diligently. Without the anxiety of poverty, the motivation to contribute shifted from personal survival to communal enhancement.
Then there is Locke's second question regarding the immense effort of raising a son that isn't biologically yours. The essay claims that the thousand-year world model actually unlinked the concept of biological ownership from child rearing.
Wow, okay. How did they do that?
The children were not viewed as the private property of their genetic parents. Instead, the entire community engaged in a structured communal education and upbringing system.
So the burden of parenting was distributed.
Exactly, leading to an environment where children were raised with collective care rather than isolated familial pressure.
And addressing Locke's final question about marriages and wives, the text states that the concept of individual spouses was eliminated. Yet, instead of the chaos Locke might have predicted, the reported outcome was a profound communal respect for women and deeply valued unowned relationships between individuals.
It's wild to think about.
It is. The overall empirical claim of the experiment is that the constant pursuit of selfish ownership brings hardship, pain, and anxiety, whereas this practiced mechanical selflessness allowed people to truly enjoy life without the friction of acquisition.
The author suggests that when you remove the daily friction of protecting what is yours from everyone else, a massive amount of psychological and societal energy is suddenly freed up.
Okay, I have to throw a flag on the play here, because there is a terrifying counterargument to all of this.
Thoughts?
Let's think about this critically for a second.
Let's hear it.
If you voluntarily give up everything you own, your house, your bank account, your exclusive relationships, the very things that define your personal boundaries, don't you fundamentally lose your individual identity?
Yeah.
I mean, you aren't a person anymore. You're just a nameless, faceless cog in a collective machine. Where is the you in a society where you own absolutely nothing?
It is the ultimate fear of the modern individualist, and it's a completely rational response. But Suifeng actually resolves this fear by presenting the central philosophical paradox of the entire text.
Okay, what is it?
The author writes, "Genuine individuality arises from selflessness, and self-discovery unfolds through self-abandonment. To have everything, one must possess nothing."
To have everything, one must possess nothing.
Yeah.
That is a mind-bending concept to process, especially for those of us raised in a culture that fundamentally equates our personal identity with our consumer choices and our property.
But the mechanical logic behind that paradox is fascinating. In our current system, we use property as a proxy for identity. I am the car I drive. I am the neighborhood I can afford to live in.
Right.
When you are no longer burdened by the constant, exhausting need to acquire, protect, and maintain those physical proxies, your psychological energy has to go somewhere else. Because you are no longer defined by your possessions, you are finally forced to confront and cultivate your actual internal character.
And Locke's framework, according to the essay, completely fails to grasp this higher level of psychological freedom because it is just too busy guarding the front door.
Exactly.
And that leads directly to the essay's ultimate paradigm-shifting conclusion. Private ownership is not the foundational engine of human civilization, as we've been taught to believe for 4 centuries. It is, mechanically and philosophically, an obstacle blocking our advancement to the next stage of our evolution.
We have journeyed from the cracked foundation of John Locke's historical text through a systemic audit of our current ecological collapse into the advanced negative variables of cosmic civilizations.
We really covered some ground today.
We did. We explored the holographic nature of the human psyche and examined the daily mechanics of a 14-year modern experiment in non-ownership. It is just a complete deconstruction of how we view our place in the universe.
So what does this all mean? We promised at the top of the show to act as impartial guides, and most crucial part of that is leaving the final judgment squarely up to you. Take a hard look at your own relationship with the things you currently own. Does the accumulation of your private property, your vehicle, your real estate, your retirement portfolio actually bring you a deep, lasting sense of security and peace?
Or, if you strip away the social conditioning, is that property actually a hidden source of constant maintenance, anxiety, and hardship, exactly as Lifechanyuan suggests? Are you thriving in this soil, or are you just surviving it?
It requires us to question the very water we swim in. If human nature is truly holographic, we have to decide which seeds we want to water and whether the current economic architecture allows the best versions of ourselves to actually bloom.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to one final lingering thought for you to take away today, something we haven't even touched on yet.
Yeah.
Think about the massive technological shifts happening right now with the subscription economy.
Oh, that's a great point.
We no longer buy CDs. We stream the entire history of music for a monthly fee on Spotify. We are relying more on rideshare networks rather than owning depreciating cars. We use software as a service instead of buying physical disks.
Right. We are actively moving toward a model of access over ownership in our daily conveniences.
Yes. Are these everyday technological shifts just clever new business models, or are they actually a subconscious early-stage migration toward the very non-ownership cosmic model Xuefeng is talking about? Are we already building the new operating system without realizing it?
That is a fascinating question.
Imagine waking up tomorrow in a society where that transition is complete. If your daily motivation to get out of bed, to invent, or to connect with your neighbors was no longer driven by the threat of losing your home or the need to acquire personal wealth, what would you actually do with your day? Who would you be if you weren't defined by what you owned?
It really makes you think.
Leave that thought in the back of your mind as you navigate the world today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.